Podcast. Take a break from the season-long commitment and join us for a Friday fling as we give you the newest and hottest DFS deals, preview the DFS main slate, and take the dreadful walk of shame. Here are your hosts, Brandon and Eric.
Welcome in. It's Fantasy Fling. We are looking at DraftKings Week 8 main slate. Let's get started. All right. So what we're going to do is take a look at the chalkboard. This is a different week. It's a very interesting week. We had a lot of value hit the slate just really in the past couple days. Early in the week, we kind of knew that, Ezekiel Elliott might be out and Tony Pollard might be in. So really that's where we thought we were going on the slate. But we're certainly going there. But, one of the bigger news things that have come out in the past couple of days is first and foremost, Devonta Foreman is going to be starting because he is Chuba Hubbard is essentially out. So Devonta Foreman is going to be starting. And then secondly, Matt Ryan got benched for Sam Ehlinger, and Ehlinger opens up some really good values. You can see at the DFS Army chalkboard here, he opens up some great value. He's only 4K. So stone cold minimum, running back, basically, quarterback. He's a runner. So we don't know what he's going to do passing the ball, but he looked great in the preseason passing the ball. And in college, he was a big time runner. So there's obviously a lot of different ways we can go with this. This changes your entire lineup construction when you have someone so cheap at this price who becomes playable. And then, it's not shown up on the chalkboard yet, but Ryan Tannehill was ruled out today. So we now have Malik Willis just above Ehlinger at 5K. So certainly like a little bit of Malik Willis as well. If you're a DFS Army subscriber, you have access to the chalkboard. This is something I do every week to piece together my lineup over on DraftKings. Use code FANTASYFLING for 10% off a VIP subscription if you want access to this. This really tells you where the field is going. So this helps you build your lineup at cash games, as we're only trying to beat 50% of the field. And then obviously in head-to-heads as well. In tournaments, 100% tournaments is going to be variation off of your cash game. So knowing the chalk really helps. And then obviously in the big GPPs, that's when we're trying to get off the chalk. So some of the guys that are really popping right now, which Tony Pollard, love it. He's the top projected own. I'm a little shocked at Ramondre Stevenson. I do think it's a little bit of recency bias. I'm not going there. I don't like it. Same with Devonta Foreman. In tournaments, I would consider that, but I really like Josh Jacobs. At 18%, he's in a good matchup, a high projected game. Kenneth Walker, and then my guy, Derrick Henry. So I'm looking to play Henry and Pollard together. We'll take a look at that when we go to the cash build. DJ Moore, Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave, these are the top three guys. I'm pretty sure I will be playing them in my cash games. And then tight end, Higbee, Freiermuth, and Kyle Pitts are looking to be the top three guys right now. Washington D is top projected owned at the moment. So this is, it kind of gives us an idea of where we might want to go based on the chalkboard. But let's get into, the domination station and kind of what we're looking at here. So with the domination station, you could see right now the fantasy points per dollar, Sam Ehlinger is just off the charts. Over 4. He's projected currently at over 4x. He has a projection of 17 points. He's only 4,000. I don't know how you play anyone else in cash this week, just because by paying down, this allows you to cram all the studs you want into your lineup. And, in cash games, we're trying to be 50% of the field. We don't want a lot of variance. We want high median scoring. So when you have a floor, like with Ehlinger, and you're able to pay up for these studs, the Tyreek Hills, the Derrick Henrys, the Josh Jacobs, so on and so forth, your lineup is going to have that high media scoring that you're looking for. We want high floor. We don't want a lot of variance. Ehlinger, that said, he certainly you're going to have to make a decision in tournaments, because if he hits 4x his salary, you're probably not winning tournaments without him, unless, some of the other quarterbacks really pay off their salary as well. Some of the in the 5 to 6K range. As of right now, Malik Willis, this will update tonight. I'm sure Malik Willis will be here near the top, but we also have Tua, Justin Fields. These guys are all looking really good. Cousins, I love Cousins in tournaments, and as well as Kyler Murray and a little bit of Jalen Hurts. So, there's a couple game environments we really want to look to target. The first one for me is Miami and Detroit. Now, this is the highest projected game on the slate. This has a lot of shootout potential because Detroit has a poor defense. In Miami, we know what they can be. We've seen it with Tua, with Waddle, specifically with Tyreek Hill. Was it 3, 4, 5 weeks ago? Towards, I believe it was like week 2, we saw them go against Baltimore, and they just looked exceptional. So going against Detroit's poor defense, there's a lot of ways you can go with this. As far as the Statsational Power Rankings, another tool you have over at dfsarmy.com, this is a game that can go even higher than projected according to his projection models. So I love this game. The other couple games I'm looking to target, New Orleans and Las Vegas. This is one of the highest projected game on the total on the slate, 49 points. And then as far as from a passing perspective, New Orleans projects very well this week. So if Las Vegas can keep pace with New Orleans as far as passing goes, this is a game that can very much shoot out. Las Vegas is favored. We like favored quarterbacks typically. I don't like Derek Carr, but I certainly love Josh Jacobs. And then as far as direct leverage, you can obviously hit Devontae Adams in that game, Matt Collins as well. A couple other games I like. New York Giants and Seattle. This is 44.5, but projection models do look like this game could hit the over. So I am all about it. With really, you could play both sides of the game. I love me some Barkley, and Daniel Jones has looked really good. He projects really well as well. I love Rondell Robinson. On Seattle side, Kenneth Walker. If there is no DK Metcalf, I like playing Marquise Goodwin as well. I think Noah Fant projects pretty well from a tight end, just from a value standpoint, if there's no DK Metcalf. So this is a game that could certainly play to the over. It's projected as so, and I like it. Probably my number one game that I want to stack this week is Minnesota and Arizona. So this is the second highest projected game, tied for it. And the great thing about these is both of these teams' passing defenses are weak. So when you have kind of the perfect storm, when you have passing defenses that are weak and you have a lot of upside from the wide receiver position, which you do on both sides. You've got, DeAndre Hopkins, Zach Ertz. So on that side, I love it, obviously, for Arizona. And then on the Minnesota side, we have Justin Jefferson. We love Justin Jefferson. Thielen, Irv Smith projects really well. Thielen is very, very underrated. Irv Smith projects really well. So this is probably my favorite game to stack. I will say from a tournament standpoint, doing the pay down with Willis or Ellinger, I like being able to pay down there and then target secondary stacks, specifically in this game and the Detroit and Miami game. And even to a lesser degree, we have New Orleans and the Raiders. So that's probably going to be my strategy this week. Now, we looked at the chalkboard, and obviously there's some tournament plays we like, and there's, Ellinger is probably where we're going to cash. Jalen Hurts, we'll take some chances in GPPs. He's looking to come under the field on ownership. So I like that with Hurts, under 10%. If everyone's going to be on Tua, if everyone's going to be on Ellinger, I will certainly do some Jalen Hurts +1 stacks, because going against the Steelers, like we saw several weeks ago, Josh Allen trashed the Steelers and, was in the nuts, was in the winning Milli Maker lineup. So that is, even though it's going to be non-competitive, I'll take some shots there if no one's going to be on that game, which really early in the week I thought people would be, and I think they would be more so if Ellinger and Willis value didn't open up. Tua, love Tua. He's not coming in too crazy, so you got to play Tua. I like Kyler Murray and Cousins, so I'm playing both sides of this game. And, I'm keeping outside of Ellinger and Willis. This is probably going to be my quarterback pool, these four right here. So running backs, Tony Pollard is the top guy this week. It's just the value is too good there. from a fantasy points per dollar perspective. So yeah, he's coming in at 3.97. Foreman projects really well. Kenneth Walker obviously as well. So I certainly like these guys. Typically, definitely Pollard. As far as my running back pool, now I love Derrick Henry. The thing is if you have Malik Willis in, he's a running quarterback. You don't want to play the two together. So if you're going to have a Willis lineup, you don't want to play Henry and vice versa. They can get there, of course, but it's negative correlation. They both run. There is the chance that if Derrick Henry fails, it's because Malik Willis is going off. He's getting a lot of the carries. He's vulturing touchdowns. So in that scenario where I don't play Derrick Henry, I'm certainly going to have some exposure to Malik Willis. And vice versa. And I feel the same way about Ellinger and Jonathan Taylor. I think if there's a way that Ellinger fails this week, it's that Jonathan Taylor gets all the touchdowns. So I certainly like that. Josh Jacobs, he just projects. They project quite well. New Orleans has a better run D, one of the better in the league, but the matchup isn't crazy to where Josh Jacobs can't get there between the workload. He's been seeing like almost 30 touches a game. He's been on an unreal run, and he projects very well this week. This game's high scoring, so we're not going to ignore that. We're going to continue to ride the hot hand. He looks very good, and the volume is there. Saquon Barkley, you have to have exposure to him as well. I don't think I'm playing him in cash this week, but I'm going to be playing him a lot in tournaments. They project very well this week from a running standpoint, and that game projects highly as well. So I think also Daniel Jones is in playing tournaments for me as well as Saquon. And then I love Kenneth Walker this week at 6,500 as well. So I mentioned Jonathan Taylor. I will have some of him in tournaments. And then, we won't get into too much into the tournament talk until we do the Milli Maker preview, which we will do in a moment. Justin Jefferson. I love Justin Jefferson this week. Obviously, as I said, I'm going to have a lot of exposure to him in tournaments. I'm not playing him in cash. But where I'm going in cash is going to be Tyreek Hill in that Detroit and Miami game. I like Chris Olave. He projects well. He's the 6K guy that we need. There's no Michael Thomas this week. So you got to slide in Chris Olave. He's just been getting an unreal target share. I believe he's averaged like 12, 13 targets a game. So I love him. That game is projected as high scoring. In fact, New Orleans passing offense, the second highest as far as passing yards this week. That's what is projected. So it's a great matchup going against the Raiders. I like Chris Olave. And then DJ Moore, he got over 30%, 40% target share last week. It was really crazy with Christian McCaffrey being gone. They made DJ Moore the focal point of the offense. And Atlanta has a very poor secondary. So I think DJ Moore is a great play this week, really in all formats. He projects very well. He's only 5,300. Great matchup. Top fantasy points per dollar wide receiver. As far as tight end, I think Noah Fant is a good play this week. I really love Irv Smith at 3,500. So I'm definitely going to have him in my cousin stacks. I think Zach Ertz projects really well this week. Certainly in tournaments, I will have a lot of exposure to him as well. And then for me, Juwan Johnson, he's also quite good. He's only 3,200 on DraftKings. So I would probably more so lean towards Noah Fant if DK Metcalf is out. But 3,200 is good as well for Juwan Johnson. Now, defense. When I do tight end and defense, we don't want a lot of variance. So I'm really looking for fantasy points per dollar plays. So, and I try to keep it, 2,600 and under. So Washington Commanders do quite well. Now, this is for obviously cash games tournaments. It is okay to pay up a defenses, looking at winning Milli Maker lineups the past couple of years. We've actually found about 3K range is, the sweet spot for defenses. So you can pay up for defenses in tournaments and cash. We don't do it. Washington, 2,600. I like them. And that's probably where I'm going just because everywhere else, you could play the Texans D as well. I wouldn't do that because I'm playing Derrick Henry in cash. And, I don't like the negative correlation there. And I just think there's a lot of ways that can go bad for them. So not going there. The Rams over San Fran, meh. Yeah, I'm probably just going to go Washington Commanders 2,600. So I think that's going to do it for cash. You know, where I'm looking right now in cash games, I like Sam Ehlinger. I like Tony Pollard. I like Derrick Henry, and I like Josh Jacobs as well. And then Moore, Hill, and Alave for me. And then I'd probably do like a Irv Smith and Washington Commanders D. Pretty sure was messing around with lineups earlier. I'm pretty sure you could fit all of them in there. So I like that. And also, yeah, you can play Hill for sure. So, but that's going to do it. We're going to take a look at the Milli Maker. We're going to do a quick preview of that. So this is something I write every week at dfsarmy.com. This is my Milli Maker review. Last year, I wrote it at fantasyfootballfling.com. My website, this is for the DFS Army now. So you can find it there. If you're not following me on Twitter, follow me at fantasyfling as I tweet this out every week when I write it, so you never miss it. So week 7 was crazy because this was one of the highest overall ownership weeks I've seen. In fact, since covering the Milli Maker in 2020 and 2021 and now 2022, this is obviously the highest I've seen. So because it was 189%. So you would have to go back to 2019 to find even, anything above 170%. So it was really high. But we had, and really because we had a lot of the games that we were on, they played to the over, right? So Raiders and Texans, Chargers and Seahawks, Chiefs and Niners, and the projected team total of the Bengals. So the chalkiest of players in these games, they smashed. And, we had Burrow in back-to-back appearances in the Milli Maker. So if you've been following me, this is something you've seen is, I break it down for you each week. And Burrow in the last year was in the Milli Maker like 3 times. And this year he's already been in it twice in back-to-back weeks. And he brought Chase with him again. So Joe Burrow, Austin Eckler, Kenneth Walker, McCole Hardman, Jamar Chase, Paris Campbell, Hayden Hurst, Josh Jacobs, and Jets D for a total of 255 points. So as far as stacking, we really had one stack, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Hayden Hurst as far as the primary, the big stack. And there was no bring back option. It was just Burrow plus 2, one being a tight end. So pretty cheap, obviously, after Jamar Chase. Now, what was kind of funny was, I mentioned this, I tweeted it out during the week, but something I've noticed in the industry is the industry has gotten so sharp. So a lot of times the leverage plays that are early on in the week looking to be low owned, they gain so much steam by lock on Sunday that they actually don't end up being that much of a leverage play. So crazy enough, everyone was on Higgins. He was low owned during the week. Jamar Chase was going to be the guy that everyone went back to because of recency bias. Jamar Chase actually ended up coming in lower owned than T. Higgins, which is nuts. And, Chase was in the nuts yet again. And we brought Hurst with him this time. And then what was crazy about this lineup is this lineup ended up in the nuts, but this wasn't even like the best lineup that it could have been because Tyler Boyd was very cheap, very low owned, like 3% owned. He wasn't in this lineup, but he scored 32 points, so he certainly should have been. This lineup also had a secondary stack of Austin Eckler and Kenneth Walker. So total stacking points, 157 points. Really good. 5 players total. And then we go back to the ownership. So Burrow, 17%. Eckler, the chalk smashed, right? Burrow, 17%. Eckler, 21%. Kenneth Walker, 32%. Mecole Hardman, 2%. Jamar Chase, 15%. Paris Campbell, 2%. Hayden Hurst, 8%. Josh Jacobs, 46%. And then the Jets D, 43%. Crazy. 189%. So something to think about. Obviously, when the chalk smashes, this is what's going to happen. It can be very high owned. It is still an outlier. But even that said, there were still a couple ways to get different. Mecole Hardman and Paris Campbell. These were the top leverage plays, less than 2% owned, both very cheap, like 4,300, 5,300. So incredibly cheap, great leverage plays. And then pricing. Now, this is one of the first weeks, really since 2021, that we've seen a couple players in the 8K range at the running back and wide receiver position get into the winning lineup. We had Eckler, 8,300, Jamar Chase, 8,200, but that is made possible when you have Jets D, 2,600, Hayden Hurst 3,500, Paris Campbell 3,900, and Mecole Hardman 4,300. So the pay downs, when you pay down and the pay down smash at over 6x, like the Paris Campbell and Mecole Hardman, that's going to work for you, obviously, to be able to afford that pay up options. So, and Paris Campbell, that was a sharp play because they were projected quite well as far as total passing yards for Indy last week, as I talked about on this podcast. And that is, when you hit a low price player like that, a low ownership, but they're in a great game script, that is when you take a chance on some of these higher priced players like Jamar Chase and Austin Eckler being able to pay off their salary and really get there. So 255 points. It's been up and down as far as ceiling. But, one thing to keep in mind is you really need to hit that 250 point range. So when you look at your lineup, if you don't think you can hit that, if you don't have heavy hitters like Burrow, Chase, Eckler, Jacobs, and, like Kenneth Walker, the new guy in town, the new star, then you're not going to be able to get there. So when you build that lineup, think, okay, it's contrarian enough. I got my stacks. It's contrarian enough. Ownership, is probably going to be within the range, 120% max, as it is most weeks. But do I have the ceiling to get there? So something you need to keep in mind. You need players who have a low floor, a few players that have a low floor, but a very high ceiling some weeks, or high enough. And then you need players like Burrow, Eckler, Jacobs that have a high floor and a high ceiling. And that is the type of construction you will need to be able to hit that 250 point target. So when we look at this week of the Milli Maker, some of the stacks that I really like, we'll just kind of get into stack studs and sleepers for the Milli Maker. Now, typically, it's a positive EV decision over the long run to have guys in the 5 to 7K range at running back and wide receiver, unless there's tremendous value. I will say this week with a Sam Ehlinger type, this will probably be a week where you will see some 8K running backs and wide receivers in the Milli Maker. If Sam Ehlinger 4X is his salary, I guarantee you that's what you're going to see this week. So keep that in mind. If he fails, obviously that's probably not going to be the case, and it's going to be lower priced guys, in the 6 to 8K range, but below that. But I could certainly see Henry getting there this week if Sam Ehlinger goes off. I could certainly see Barkley. We could see Waddle in a great matchup. So things to keep in mind. As far as top stacks that I like this week, the top, really, it just comes to me. There's a few games, top scoring games. Miami, Detroit, New Orleans, and Las Vegas, New York Giants, and Seattle, and Minnesota, and Arizona. So I like Tua stacks. Obviously, you can do Tua. You can do, to Hill, to Waddle. I do like Gesicki as a way to get different, just based on ownership. From what I saw, he was coming in pretty low owned. Let's just do projected ownership. Yeah, 4%. So I love that. That's a great way to get different in that game, for example. And I do believe Waddle is going to be not incredibly high owned because most people are going to be on Tyreek Hill, 20%. So, yeah, Jalen Waddle, 13%. So, yeah, I think if you're going to do Tua stacks, you have to mix in Gesicki in that. And then you could stack the other side of the game, obviously, with Goff and Amron. You could even do Goff and Swift, because Swift is a pass catching running back. So it's not necessarily negatively correlated like it would be with Sam Ehlinger and Jonathan Taylor, for example. So you can stack both sides of that game. We're hoping it's a back and forth affair for sure. The second game I really want to stack, and probably from a stacking perspective, the game that I like the most is Minnesota at Arizona. So you can definitely hit the Cousins. And the Murray side, I prefer the Cousins side of this game because he's 6,100. And let's see, he's 6% owned. So that's low. I'm going to be all over that at 6% ownership. I love it. Let's see, as far as projections. Yeah, Kyler Murray, 6% owned as well. So, yeah, give me both sides of that game. I do like Cousins better just because he's cheaper. And obviously with Cousins, you pretty much need to do it with +2. So Cousins, Jefferson, Thielen, and then Irv Smith. I like those options. And then on the Murray side, Ertz projects really well. And obviously DeAndre Hopkins, we got Nuke back. So that's a good stacking game that I like. And then I do believe on the New Orleans side, if I'm stacking in that game and I'm doing a primary stack, it's going to be Andy Dalton with Olave. Your Traquan Smith, I do like him this week, as Las Vegas is susceptible to slot wide receivers. So I believe you could probably double with Traquan Smith, especially since he's so cheap. So, those are going to be the top 3 games that I am really looking to stack. And as far as studs at running back, some of the guys that I really like from a stud perspective, obviously I mentioned Henry. He's going to be 12% owned, somewhat of the chalk. Josh Jacobs as well. Saquon Barkley, 13% owned. So he's actually above Henry, but he's cheaper, so that's not surprising. And then I do like Alvin Kamara this week. He is looking to be higher owned. I'm probably not too much into it, actually, with 16%. We always worry about Taysom Hill vulturing touchdowns, and that's why Kamara just hasn't really got there, because Taysom Hill vultures touchdowns from him. So I'm probably not going there in tournaments, but now that I say that, watch him go off. Jonathan Taylor, if everyone's going to be playing Ellinger, I think you have to have some Jonathan Taylor lineups in like your Cousins stack or your Tua stack. I think just is direct leverage in that game off of Sam Ehlinger, because Jonathan Taylor could obviously have a big week as well. I don't like Donta 4-minute chalk. That's an easy fade for me in tournaments. DeAndre Swift, I love him this week. I think that is one of the best leverage plays on the slate. A lot of people are going to be looking to stack this game. Or DeAndre Swift, he's less than 5% on. So, yeah, give me a lot of that. Eno Benjamin, you could certainly take some shots there too at 3%. If there's no Darrell Williams this week, but even if there is, with James Conner out, he looks pretty good, and he catches passes too. So there are a lot of ways for him to get there. As far as wide receivers, some of my other studs at wide receiver. Justin Jefferson, 10%. That's not bad at all. Cooper Kupp projects really well this week. He's very expensive. Not a lot of people are going to be on him. And by the way, another running back that I mentioned, Christian McCaffrey, this week. We don't know what the workload is going to be, but guess what? Debo's out, and it's the second week. He's had a whole week and a half, and he got, quite a few looks in that game. So Christian McCaffrey, if he's coming in low owned, guys, like, everyone's going everywhere else. They're thinking Pollard. They're thinking Donta Foreman. They're thinking Henry. Yes, give me low-owned Christian McCaffrey. All about it on DraftKings. I like Devontae Adams this week as leverage off of Josh Jacobs. That's a high-scoring game. Absolutely. Amron, 10%. Absolutely. In that game. He's my top stacking option, and actually he's my top bring back option in my Tua stacks. So I certainly love that. I think Brandon Cooks is in line for a great week this week with no Nico Collins. Obviously, you could play AJ Brown, especially if nobody's going to be on him, which really nobody seems to be on that Philly game. So I like that. And then with Malik Willis, everyone playing Derrick Henry, I would certainly take some shots on Robert Woods. I do not hate that at all. Devonta Smith as well, as kind of like AJ Brown. He's low owned. We've already seen him be in the nuts this year, so I like it. Rondale Moore, Wan'Dale Robinson's a guy that I like. These are more like at sleepers at this point than studs. So tight end, though, a couple studs that I like at tight end. I love George Kittle this week. He's low owned, 5,700. No Deebo Samuel. He's been averaging about 7-8 targets a game the past several weeks. So, and he just looks really good. He looks like himself. So I like that. Zach Ertz, 3%. So you could certainly take some shots there. He's low owned and he projects really well. So I love that as a way to get different if a lot more people are going to be on the Jefferson and the Nuke side of that game, stacking like Kyler Murray with Zach Ertz. I think that's a good one. TJ Hawkins has some trade rumors. Maybe they want to showcase him a little bit. We've certainly seen that in recent weeks, with Christian McCaffrey, you think they would have maybe wanted to shut him down. No, they want to show how good they are. So not a horrible play, 5%. Waller has not done a thing this year, but if he plays, he could be a leverage play, of course. And then Irv Smith in that Minnesota game, as I mentioned, I love him. That's just a really good matchup for Irv Smith this week. So let's go that way. I think let's take a look at a couple sleepers. I do think Willis he's going to end up being higher owned. So even though right now he might be low ownership, I do think Willis is a guy who will end up being chalk when it's all said and done. Daniel Jones, he projects really well this week. He's only 5,700. If everyone is going to be on Milli, and by the way, Daniel Jones ran naked last week. I was reviewing some lineups, ran naked last week and won a tournament unstacked because of his rushing ability. The New York Giants project really well this week, running the ball like 100, almost 200 yards rushing is what they project for. So maybe Daniel Jones swallows up a lot of that himself. So certainly like him, I think he could be a sleeper. Justin Fields does look better and better. And Chicago does project for a lot of rushing yards this week. So I could certainly see Justin Fields being a sleeper. Geno at 5% going against the Giants. I don't love it, but he's looked good. Even with Marquise Goodwin. So as far as a running back, a couple guys that I might like, I do think the pool, I'm going to keep my pool pretty small this week. There's a lot of guys that I'm, just more or less going to avoid. Raheem Mostert, yeah, he's projecting quite well now. He is projecting his chalk. Let's see if there's some fantasy points per dollar plays that are coming in low owned. Miles Sanders is an interesting play this week. In these situations where Philly's been a heavy favorite, Miles Sanders has done very well. So he's a guy you have to get exposure to. I like Tyler Algier as well, just because Atlanta projects quite well running the ball this week. It is a low-scoring game, 43 points, but they project for over 150 yards. He's gotten a lot of target share, or a lot of rushing, the majority of the rushes the past several weeks. So he slides in as a great play for me. And then last, let's go ahead and look at some of the wide receivers that are low are on Marcus Callaway if he plays in that game. Certainly Darnell Mooney, I think he could be stacked with Fields against Dallas. They've been susceptible to the slot. So he's a good guy. Chris Moore, if you do have Davis Mills, I think you can even run him just by himself at 3,400. He looks quite well. And then Trent Sherfield as well going against Detroit. So he's only 2% owned. If you're looking for a way specifically, like with Tyreek Hill, who's going to be 20% owned, if you're looking for a way to get really different, Trent Sherfield, he's seen like about 10% target share. So at 3,000, he does not have to do much to get there. He really doesn't need to even hit 4X. He can get there, between 3 and 4X. As long as the rest of the lineup goes off, and specifically with the Tyreek Hill type, which we've seen in the past, if it's in a stack and Tyreek Hill scores 40 and Sherfield only scores 10 points, that's fine. You're still hitting that 27, more or less. You're pretty close on that 27.7 point average that you need. And specifically if Tua gets there, between Tua, Tyreek Hill and Chris Moore, 10 points from Chris Moore is certainly fine as long as Tua gets there and Tyreek Hill gets there. So something to think about when you're constructing your lineups. I think this week, really the pay down options at quarterback, the Malik Willis, the Sam Ellingers, they're going to be able to afford you a lot of different ways that you can go with your lineup. My strategy personally, specifically in tournaments, is if I'm going with the Ellingers and the Malik Willises, I'm looking to stack those. I'm looking to run those guys by themselves, and I'm going to stack the pieces of other games that I really like: Minnesota, Arizona, Detroit, Miami, and New Orleans and Las Vegas. So I think that's going to do it for this week. I hope y'all have a great week winning your monies in DraftKings, the GPPs, the cash games. If you have any questions, give me a holler at Twitter at FantasyFling. Win some monies. Let's take down the Milli Maker. Out.